Welcome to another episode of the Uncle Greg Show podcast, a podcast where we talk about everything related to personal safety from an Afrocentric perspective. And just because we talk about things from an Afrocentric perspective, all are welcome to participate. On this episode, we'll be talking about the Will Smith Oscar slap, and we will be continuing our discussion about the personal safety of black women. So let's get to it. Hey, welcome once again to the Uncle Greg Show podcast. And I hope you all had a good week since the last time you heard us on the air. And once again, I'm talking with the brothers to continue our discussion about the safety of women and the personal safety of women. And I'm joined, as always, by Ross, Kent, and Roger.
All right, now.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Oh, we good. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Doing good. I'm alive. I woke up this morning. Thank God. I'm good.
Right. Yeah. How was your week?
Hey, I had a decent week. You know, getting ready to go on a little bit of soiree, a little vacation and stuff. So I had to get some work in, but I still had enough time to spend with my. Actually, I went to go visit my mother in Saginaw Sunday. She's still playing her instruments and stuff, whatever. We put out a harmonica and stuff, and I came back and hung out with my labs for a minute, you know, and I'm good. Started out fresh this week, and I'm ready to go.
That's good. Good. What about you, Kent?
Good. Good week. Hey, woke up. Every day you wake up is a great day.
Amen.
Busy work, but getting ready to go to Charlotte for a conference and looking forward to that. So as long as the weather holds up. But,
hey, well, like we said, we be hoping and praying for you, but safe trip.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Me, myself, I had a good week. And as I sent you brothers a link, I was, I'm actually, I don't know what they call these people that they always turn to, news stations. I guess the expert. I'm a personal safety expert for stations out of Houston. And I did an interview this week, and we'll be talking about the contents of that interview, but it was about these rideshare drivers raping their female passengers. And what's so interesting about that is that a few years ago, I developed a program to help protect women while they were utilizing rideshare pre-pandemic. And it was like the subject fell by the wayside, but now as things are starting to return to something close to normal, you're starting to see these crimes pick back up again. So we'll discuss that and what women can do who utilize rideshare, and the rideshare portion is just an overall program. I told you before that I'm building within my business. So, but we are going to get to that later. First off, at the time of this broadcast, this is 2 days after the notorious slap that was heard around the world. And as I said earlier, Thanos had the snap and Will Smith had the slap. So I want to get you guys' perspective on it. So go ahead and tell me what you think.
Interesting.
Well, I'll go first. All right. So me and the wife are watching it. And, we know how things go with the Oscars. We know the comedians and the jokes. And I saw some other things during the broadcast of the Oscars that I thought was a little off, and maybe they shouldn't have done it, especially since, the brother that basically produced and directed it, Will Packer, and then you got, all these other Black entertainers, great, thespians, as I call them, Denzel Washington and Samuel Jackson. So, we were represented pretty well, and I wanted it to go off well. That's why I watched it. So, in watching it, of course, we all know what happens. And I see Will Smith get up And I thought it was a joke. I thought he was just going to approach him, maybe
Right.
point his finger at him. And then he smacked him. And I'm like, this is scripted. And my wife said it was scripted. And then I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. And so I paused it, rewind, paused it, rewind. I'm like, no, he open-handed slapped him. And then when he went back to his seat, of course, you know, he drops the F-bomb. And the station, they're live, but they bleep it out here. And I'm like, and then you watch Lupita in the background, and she's just like looking like, oh my goodness, is this real?
Lupita looked shocked. She did.
Yeah,
she had that look on her face like, I ain't gonna say nothing about that woman's haircut.
Right. So long story short, fellas, you know what these comedians gonna do. You got to have a little bit thicker skin. Mm-hmm. I understand Will being upset. You know, she does have alopecia. Maybe he knew, maybe he didn't know. When it comes to a comedian, you know, nobody's off limits. But I thought it was in poor taste to bring up her situation if he knew. But it was definitely in poor taste and not, I'm sorry, you don't need to go up on stage and slap another man, especially another Black man, on live national TV. It just doesn't need to happen.
No, bro, that's international television.
Yeah, it was international too.
True, international.
International. But
that's right, because they were, you know, they saw it live in Australia and every place else. There wasn't no beeping out stuff.
Exactly.
So, no, they didn't.
So I was shocked. I was not happy because, hey, Will Smith, I always liked him. One of my favorites. You know, I grew up with Will Smith from his when he started rapping to his TV show, his movies, you know, like Independence Day. Mm-hmm. You know, I thought he did a good job in King Richard, you know, so I've always been a fan. Chris Rock, you know, I've always liked him too. So it wasn't appropriate. We can't show the world that we can't get along amongst each other.
Amen.
Now, me personally, if I was in Will's position, I would have pointed at him like, we're going to discuss this later. Wait till the cameras go away and have a discussion.
And I know you, if it would have got too heated, you would have knocked him out. I know you.
Yeah, but you know, you just don't do it on the international stage, right, and in front, because certain people out there already think that, you know, Black on Black crime and Black people can't get along with one another. It doesn't bode well for us.
No. Ross, go ahead, because I got some.
Yeah, I haven't watched the Academy Awards in probably 40 years.
I'm right with you.
So when it happened, it seemed to move pretty quickly. I was like, okay, wait a minute, what's going on here? Like Kent said, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was scripted at first. You know, and then they showed it again. I started looking the next day at it and stuff, and I'm like, wow, he actually did walk up there and slap him.
Right.
And then I saw one of them uncut versions of it too. So I'm like, okay. You know, and my first thought was, well, that was quite inappropriate for Will to go up on the stage and do what he had done, you know. And I'm thinking about Will Smith, the person. I don't know him personally, but I've seen enough of his body of work. Like Ken said, I grew up watching him from Parents Just Don't Understand to Prince of Bel-Air to, you know, to King Richard, you know, all of that. You know, I've watched a lot of his work, probably all of it. I've probably seen everything that he's done, you know, especially in motion pictures. I'm impressed with that. He's impressive. You know, he's a good-hearted person. I get that impression too, you know. And when I started to watch the segment where this all happened closer, I started to notice some of the nuances in the filming there. Will was clapping and laughing at first.
He was.
It panned over to his wife, and she's always been a bit of a firecracker, I think. Whatever, I've been watching her. She was young too, you know, with Bill Cosby, you know, and what was that? A
Different World.
Different World. You know, but a lot of stars that were on there that were young people that weren't known well back then, but many of them done extremely well, and I saw that little smirk on her face, her head turned to the left, and she was like, and the first thing I thought was all the stuff that's been out in the media about those two, their open relationship, supposedly, you hear a lot of rumors and stuff, whatever. And I can just imagine them having a discussion at times with all the things that have been going on, her red talk table and stuff, whatever that.
Yeah.
I can imagine there might have been a discussion at some time or another, like, you need to defend my honor. I'm sure they've had that conversation at some time. And when he looked over and saw her looking like that, he was like, oh, this might be my opportunity to do something. What do I do? Exactly. And he got spontaneously to show that I'm not as soft as some may think that I am. I think he gets that little bit of a reputation too, because he's not a super aggressive person. Although he does have some history of popping people before and stuff when they've gone too far, but I can dig it. I mean, not to say that you should do it, but sometimes that happens. But that was just the wrong place to do it. And I'm so glad that Denzel and others came up to him. What was that classic, which is going to be a classic line for Denzel? When you're at your highest point, that's when the devil will come after you.
Right.
And that was something that he should have handled backstage. Looking at Chris Rock, I'm not so sure if he knew that she had alopecia, but he did before he made that joke. And that's what they do. Like Kid said, hey, you got to have some thicker skin. And comedians like that don't travel to universities anymore. And I got 3 major schools around me that I'm thinking when, years ago that I'm going to have the opportunity to see a lot of these comedians, but they won't do these campuses because of the, how should I say this? The thin skin that they have, this age of political correctness, and there's a difference between showing some tact and not. And I think sometimes those lines can be blurred, knowing what a comedian does. And Chris looked a little shocked when that happened. That's when I knew. I was like, oh, this was not scripted. And he did say before he said what he was saying, I love you. But he went on and did it anyway. Now, there's some history.
Right.
I do in 2016 when
that came up.
Yeah. It was true. There wasn't many of us. And even to this day, Halle Berry is still the only Black female to ever win for Best Actress. That's incredibly crazy. That's just, if you think about that in the scheme of Hollywood and how long it's been around and all the great Black actresses that have passed through that realm, she's the only one. And, I remember when Denzel won it that year too, both of them got it for being like less than banner people and stuff and roles and stuff that you might want to look up to.
And that's another discussion.
That's another discussion.
That's another discussion. We have to have that discussion.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because, J.C. Watts, who from Oklahoma was a congressman, Black congressman from Oklahoma.
I remember him. I remember J.C.
Yeah.
He got as number 3 in the Republican Party.
Right. And the thing is, when they used to question him about being a Black Republican, he said, well, my mama used to tell me that, we all deserve a seat at the table. And I would think about that. I said, well, yeah, that's all fine and good. And that might be true. But the bottom line is, why do you want to sit at a table where you're not welcome?
Right.
And I don't know if you guys knew this week as a side note, the Black News Channel, which was pretty much a Black version of the F channel, shut down.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. He and I think the owner of I don't know if it's the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's one of the NFL teams. They own the station and they shut it down because their ratings were so low they didn't register on I guess the Nielsen system. But before I chime in on this, okay, because like I said, my opinion has actually changed after speaking with my little sister about it. She gave me a totally different perspective that I agreed with. But I know Raj had a unique perspective that he wanted to comment on this slap. And I want to give him an opportunity to talk about that right now. Roger?
Yeah, so for me, that slap, it was more than just a slap. A lot of it has to do with a lot of mounting pressure
Yes.
that
I was about to
he's
get to.
faced over time.
That's it.
And the thing of it is that mounting pressure built up in him. And ever since he and Jada sat at that table and she, has shared with him about her rendezvous with August, that guy named August.
Yeah.
You have to
Entanglement.
think for a moment. Yeah. You have to think that in his mind, it wasn't until he looked at Jada at the Oscars, because he
Yeah.
laughed,
Yes.
but he looked over and he noticed that she was not pleased with the thought. It started making me think about the story of King Ahab and Jezebel and how she was very manipulating and influential of his ways in which he had to go do things. And so at that moment, it wasn't about the slap. It was the fact that all that mounting pressure arose, which obviously states that his household is not in divine order. And when
Bingo.
it's a house that's not in order, it's going to fall.
Yep.
All of these things are starting to manifest in his life. And because he's throwing this cold shoulder, the enemy made him look like a fool. And Jada, being a descendant spiritually of Jezebel, I would even say Herodias, who basically told bring John the Baptist's head on a platter based off what King Herod was going to do. Will sat there and looked like a fool. He said, "Oh, let me go up and prove myself." But he should not have done that. The best reply that I heard was what Ricky Smiley said. Ricky Smiley has said on his podcast, on his radio show, he said, Will should have got up, or he should have looked over Jada. I'll talk to him later. Will should have got up, went to the back of the stage, wait for him by the dressing room. When he saw Chris, "Hey man, I need to have a word with you." Call in the dressing room, air out all of the dirty laundry, all the issues. Was it something that like Chris Rock could have said, "Hey, I was reading off the teleprompter," or it was something I said? Now, had it came to the point where Chris would have gotten his face and Will had to defend himself, yeah, then you have a right to do it and nobody else would have known about it. But to do it at that level on national television, you put in now the majority's mindset about what they had thought all along about us. And it's an embarrassment to Will Packer, even though he was okay by the end of the night. It was his first production, but at the same time, with the Oscars being 95% of his production company African American, they had 15.9 million viewers. It just made us look very bad in an aspect of where you allow somebody who was the one that committed the adultery, manipulating to you to go up there and make a fool out of yourself, which was uncalled for. So with all the stuff that he had within himself, it wasn't until he looked over and saw her how dissatisfied she was with that comment.
Yes.
And he, being King Ahab, robotically got up and went up there and embarrassed himself. But woe is me. Now every woman that suffered alopecia are now on Jada's side, knowing good and well he was manipulated into going up to do it. He should have just sat his butt still and looked over there. If he had the mindset of a godly man, okay, I'll let that pass, but I'm gonna talk to him after the show. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna handle it. And all Jada had to say was, "You better, I will." End of story. But now he set himself up where now everybody's chiming in. And then also the other thing is, I'm gonna say this real quick, is one of my friends I went to high school with, he made a very valid point on his Instagram post. He said, there's definitely pee in the dating pool, because he said, you would not believe how many African-American women condone what Will Smith did, because there you go, protect your woman. No, that's stupid, because he made her and him look like an idiot because of his actions. There's a time and there's a place to handle what we call situational anger and frustrations, but there's a time and place to where you have to have a level of decency for yourself. And I told him, I said, yeah, man, I agree. More like there's a feces in there too, because the way that a lot of some of the sisters conceptualize that information is that they feel as though they got to go have a man do that. And then you got some brothers there would say, yeah, I got to go do that too to defend my woman honor. No, they're stupid, because now you're walking in the flesh and not after the spirit. The spirit would tell you, like Jesus said, turn the other cheek. You can go resolve that issue. But at the same time, now you're doing it the world's way. Now you're giving the majority of reason now to look at us more even sideways. And it was an embarrassment. So no matter what your apology was, when you went up there to accept your award for Best Actor, Denzel gave you the best advice. He said, at times like this, when you are rising your career, he said, the devil's going to come after you. And if you don't protect your light, this is the situation that happens. So with all of that being said, it's one of those things where Will Smith needs to kind of drift off into the atmosphere a little bit, take time to get his house in order, unless otherwise, if it ain't going to work, then you need to take this to the next step and move on with your life, because as long as you stay married, and then of course, when they sat at the red table, they said, bad marriage for life. And I said, you've been spoken into existence. And look what's happened. When you speak those things to existence, that's the kind of stuff that happens, and it's only going to get worse if you don't resolve it.
And you know, that's an excellent point. As I said before, I had one opinion on it, and then when my little sister gave me her perspective on it, I changed. But I'm going to attempt to unpack this, because I looked at this in so many different ways. You know, Denzel's comment, what I was trying to determine out of his comment is who was actually the devil. Was he saying Chris Rock was the devil, or was he saying Will Smith was taken over by the devil when he went up on stage and slapped him? So when he said that, you know, I really thought about that, and it made me wonder, as you know, it was said, he could have handled it differently. He didn't just embarrass himself and his wife; he embarrassed all of us.
Yeah,
because
that's my point.
Yeah, when you had a Black produced Oscar, he did not take the time to think of about what impact his actions would have, or how badly it would reflect on us as a people. Okay, but that being said, you know, you breathe that at his status where he is in life, you breathe that rarefied air. Most of them don't ever think about the impact it's going to have on us as a race. It's all about me. Now, when I saw that, well, I'll give you a question to think about. How do you defend someone's honor if they don't have any?
Bingo.
Okay.
Good point.
And I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a second. Yeah. But the first thing, it shows you how my safety-oriented mind works. When Will Smith jumped up and headed up on stage, my first thought out of reflex was somebody needs to stop him, because he's going up there on stage to attack him. Not because of what he said. It's just, I've been trained to watch people's movements, you know, and things.
Right.
When I went through dignitary protection training, and that just set off an alarm. Little did I know, you know, I wasn't thinking it was Will Smith. I'm just thinking it's some guy going up there going to disrupt, you know, and cause harm to Chris Rock. And I was right, you know, because that's exactly what Will Smith did. Now, comedians generally live by the philosophy. I've heard Black comedians and white comedians all say this: if it makes people laugh, it's not offensive. And I have never agreed with that belief, because if someone's mother is dying of cancer and you're making a joke about her dying of cancer, and it's funny, it's still offensive.
Right.
But they have that philosophy or that mindset that, well, if it makes people laugh, it's funny and it's not offensive. And as I said, I disagree with that. And in this day and age, whatever prompted, heckling is going, as you can see, has been taken to a whole different level. Now it's become physical. So when Chris Rock said it, I was surprised. I expected, I wouldn't have expected something like that out of Chris Rock. I would expect it out of one of those lowbrow, you know, Hannibal Buress, for example.
Right.
The one that attacked Bill Cosby. Yeah. So if he had done, I wouldn't have been surprised at all. But Chris Rock, I got to say, I was really surprised that he did it. As you alluded to earlier, Ross, we don't know if he actually knew Jada had alopecia or didn't. But at this point, it really doesn't matter. You know, my little sister said, you can't live your life in a way, and Roger, this ties into what you were saying, where you are airing all your business and your dirty laundry to the public and not expect some type of ramification or consequence. You know, you think it's okay to talk about your marriage and, you know, your children. People question that, you know, how their children are, but you're sharing all this information that's supposed to stay within the home. And what happens when you do that, you open the door for people to say anything about it, about you, because, hey, it's not like you mind in the first place sharing all your personal business. So, hey, if you can attack yourself or put it out there, I can attack you too. And that's probably why Chris Rock felt as comfortable as he did making that comment. You know, us coming from Detroit, we definitely would have had a word with Chris Rock after, you know, on the commercial break. You know, he would probably come back out on stage holding his jaw. But, you know, it was not the right thing to do at the right time, you know, and Will Smith, he handled it badly. Now, there are people, if you notice, everybody's circling the wagons. The comedians are circling around Chris Rock and the actors are circling around Will Smith, because the actors, they feel his frustration and his pain, but it has never been taken to such a degree. Man, you haven't seen anybody attack physical attributes. The one person out there stands out in my mind, you know, you've seen him actually attack somebody's physical attribute or physical condition, was Donald Trump, when he talked about the handicapped, you know, reporter, you know, and that was definitely in poor taste and offensive. But for Chris Rock to do it, like I said, I was surprised he went there. And that's just my perspective on that.
I see it slightly different. I looked at Chris Rock, and like I said, I don't know if he knew she had alopecia or not. I'm assuming that maybe he didn't, and that they've known each other long enough that wouldn't be so much of a problem, because he said, we're waiting for the next G.I. Jane movie and stuff, you know. And for some, that could be like an offhand compliment. Mm-hmm. With him not understanding the struggles with that condition. Mm-hmm. I had a very beautiful girlfriend when I was in school. And I remember my father coming to visit my mother and father, and she had gone to the bathroom and noticed this big bald spot in her beautiful head, in her hair. Oh, wow. I didn't think it was a big deal because I was still going to love her anyway. It didn't matter. But that was part of her, you know, and you can think of it as being, I don't know, what's the word for it? A bit not materialistic about this, but self-serving or self-indulging. But you know, especially being Black people, we care about what we look like, you know, and not just Black, everybody does, but we especially do and stuff, you know. And that was so devastating to her. I mean, we got through it and stuff just fine, and she was okay after that. And of course, there's been a lot of criticism about how your hair is worn in places, you know, especially in workplaces.
Right. They've enacted laws for that now.
Right. So there's an anxiety that's around Black women oftentimes with their hair. Mm-hmm. They put a lot of work into it. You know, you've seen all the jokes and stuff about, you know, Nene and stuff sleeping up off her pillow and stuff because she can't mess her hair up and stuff, whatever, you know. And so those things can be thought about too. That's something that comes into mind too and stuff, whatever. And I've never had that issue, so and I can be empathetic about it to some point, but you know, maybe not quite as sympathetic. So it got to be a sensitive issue with her. You can see it written across her face. And what Roger said, Roger was right on about a lot of those things too. Yeah. That slap was more than that alopecia with Will. That was something that was building up in him for a while. He always seems to have a happy face. You hear all these things that are coming out. It's got to bother you. You're human, you know. And he's done a great job of hiding what he may be hurting because of things that are said out in public too about he and his wife and allegedly their open relationship and the infidelity, you know, how it affects the kids, you know, and you can see them sometimes with their creativity reaching out for other avenues and stuff that, especially me and Black people, look at them and go, whoa, what are they doing? What are they tripping on? You know, what is Jaden doing and stuff for that? Why is he wearing the dress?
Exactly.
And they open themselves up to things that, you know, we can say traditionally that we're not used to seeing at times the way that we were raised, and it might be a little bit too open, a little bit too liberal.
What?
But that's just a thought that we have from the worlds that we come from. So I never try to pass any judgment on anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like Roger said, like all of you alluded to, when it gets to the point where you stand up on national television and you slap another individual because you're hurt about what he's saying, and see, that's escalation too. That's another thing that I thought that was really bad judgment on Will's part. If I would say this all the time, you can say whatever you want to me. I'm really good with the Queen's English. I can come back with anything to get back
Right.
at you under your skin. But Will escalated this. He walks up on stage on international television, and not only did he slap another man, he slapped another Black man.
Right.
That was my point.
Right.
He slapped another Black man that was smarter than him too.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that looked good. So
Well,
one positive thing about this, there could be something positive that comes out of this because it's a teaching moment.
it
You
is.
know, that thing happens afterwards. There could be a lot of redemption and stuff, you know, and a lot of forgiveness and beyond our God, so it can be beyond the rest of us too. I think something good is going to come out of this because he is an intellectual stalwart in Hollywood. We respect him because of his intellect,
Right.
you know, and it was so out of character for him and for Chris Rock to accept that both of them are intellectual stalwarts.
Right.
You know, that's the thing. So let's see
Well,
what happens.
I got another question. I got another question for you guys, but I want to say this first. I watched the entire incident from a Japanese broadcast.
Ooh, that
And
ought to be
I was really surprised that the slap sounded the same in Japanese as it did in America.
like a musical note.
Yeah, but
C minor sounds like a C minor all over the world.
I'm telling you. But here's a question.
That
Because
comes from,
Ross,
that comes from theater.
yeah,
Right?
hey, that's true. Yeah, he slapped him, but the sound effect came in a little later.
Oh,
Right.
shame on you.
But anyway, here's the question. Ross, you alluded to 2016.
Yes.
And when Jada called for a boycott,
Yes.
guess who the host was?
Yes.
Chris Rock was the host. So could
Yes.
this have possibly been revenge?
Well, you know, he made the comment because they wanted to boycott it. And he's like, wait a minute. And I'm paraphrasing. Ain't you a television person? You ain't in a lot of these movies. Why are you the loudest voice right now when it comes to boycotting the Academy Awards and stuff, whatever? You know, I could see if it was like one of the other box office
Major
hits
stars,
that's-
yeah.
You
Yeah,
may be,
right.
you know. You know,
Well,
so maybe they have a little bit to do with it too, you know. Well,
Right.
hopefully
And
they talk about all of this, you know, in retrospect, and so the rest of us understand, especially us as, you know, I don't mean to leave everybody out, but especially us as Black folk, because
Mhm.
like someone said before and stuff, whatever, you know, you always have these low expectations of us, and it's just
Yeah.
not true and stuff. So, and it
Yeah.
did make us put us in a bit of a compromised position. We know better than that. This is 2000. You still have probably about a third of the nation that thinks, see, I told y'all, you know, that's what they do, you
Right.
know.
Yep.
You know, so
well, good. Can I chime in here, fellas?
Go ahead, of course.
yeah, I want to hear what you got to say. I know you got something.
Well,
so.
I wrote some notes down, and you know, everybody, Ross, Roger, Greg, y'all all brought up valid points. I mean, everything you said. And just to let you brothers know, you know, I got the TV on in the background. ET is talking about it. So I'm taping it so I can go back and watch it. But they're kind of running the full gamut of the events. So, you know, everybody can check that out and see what they have to say. Like you said, there was some history there, I think. And I think Chris has put some jokes out there and made some statements when it comes to Jada or the family. They showed a clip also, I saw it somewhere online, Laverne Cox interviewed, and you know who Laverne Cox is, the transgender lady.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she made a comment. She was interviewing Will and Jada. And the last thing she said in the interview during this, whatever red carpet event was, you know, the red, what is the red table and the entanglement.
Yeah, the red talk table, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's still out there. So I agree. I think Will's under all this pressure, and especially me and my sister talked about it too. And she brought up the same facts. Will's under all this pressure. He's trying to stand up for his family and his wife. And I think all the things that he's been through, from Jada's entanglement and all the pressure that goes along with his career, and I mean, this Oscar nomination, it's a big deal. It all came to a head. And again, how many times have we seen it over the past couple of years? We talk about mental health, you know, where people have stepped aside and said, hey, wait a minute, you know, the gymnast, she had to step aside. So Simone Biles, she's saying, hey, my mental health right now isn't right. I've got to step aside. I got to take a mental break. So
Ken, I don't mean to cut you off, but Naomi Osaka, the tennis player.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Her as well. You know, so they recognize, like, hey, I'm gonna have to step back a little bit because I'm not where I should be mentally. And we all have those periods. None of us are above this.
Oh, without a doubt. So,
you know, but a couple other quick things. You know, he talked about, you know, what he talked about, you know, G.I. Jane. I mean, you know, we all know it was Demi Moore. She's a very attractive woman. Mm-hmm. Short hair, bald hair, doesn't matter. But if Chris had said this, and this is a question I have for you, we've all seen Black Panther. What if he made the analogy about Black Panther? The King's Guards, they were all bald. Would that have made a little bit of a difference? Or will we have the same effect? And again, that's just a question.
Right. I'm just not to cut you off too. I'm going to chime in for a minute. I have 3 family members, including my cousin Brenda, who just died recently. She was one of those department store models. The series we watched her growing up. She had alopecia. I have 3 family members that have alopecia. I know others that have it too. I know maybe one guy. I was actually in the airport next to Villanueva when Connecticut was about to win the national championship in 2015, 16, something like that. Right. And we talked a little bit. And I'm looking at him because I know he has it. But every female that I know of that has alopecia, they're all beautiful. I mean, they're all beautiful. I've never seen them with alopecia. Oh my gosh, she's beautiful. So
this is another discussion in itself, because I've even had my discussion with my daughter. I said, you know what? I know the way the trends are today, you know, with the hair and the weaves and the sew-ins and all that. But I said, us as brothers, we don't care. If you fine, you fine. It doesn't matter if you got weave down your back or your natural hair down your back or you bald headed. You know, I think, you know,
I got one word for that.
What?
I got one word for that. When you guys, I can agree. And Rick James said it best. There's no dictionary book. Cold-blooded. That's how I
know that's right. I know that's right.
Right? Yeah. So, hey, if you're beautiful, you're beautiful. So, and this is where I tie it back to Chris Rock. His responsibility is, if you don't know her situation, don't joke about it. I don't even care if somebody else wrote the joke. Mm-hmm. What if she did have cancer? What if she had chemo and she's losing her hair? And we've all seen people that are close to us who've had cancer and chemo and lose their hair. So you gotta be careful. So, but again, is it worth him getting slapped on national TV? No. You handle it the Detroit way. You know, or the Chicago way. You pull them aside afterwards. And if you got to go to blows behind stage and behind closed doors, that's a different story. But not in front of the world to see. And again, about us. It's all, why as we as Black people, we can't get along on TV? Why can't we get along in life? We've been through too much. We need to stop this foolishness and get along. And the last point I'm going to bring up, if you're frustrated, if you're all this pressure on you, sometimes you just got to step away. You got to step away.
Yeah.
Walk away from it. Be the bigger person. We don't know how to be the bigger person. Nothing wrong with standing up for your woman, but there's a time and a place. And I preach that to my children all the time. There's a time and a place.
Yeah.
Well, you have to understand we're in a time now that you don't have to be the bigger person anymore. You can say and do whatever you want. No filters, no boundaries.
The age of no order. That's what I call it.
Exactly.
No
Exactly.
And you think there's no consequences to your acts, especially in the moment. Whatever.
Yep. So, I'm not saying that's the cause, but I believe it definitely fed into Will Smith's mentality, how he responded in that incident, because you couldn't get a hold of, you have to think about what you did. And he broke down when he got back to his seat. Everybody talked about all the pressure. That was the obvious sign that all that weight he had been carrying for so long, because when his wife's infidelity came to light, and it didn't come, I don't believe it came to light on her show. It was brought up by somebody else.
Yes.
And the thing is, I equate this to Eric Benet when he was married to Halle Berry and she did Monsters Ball.
Yeah.
Okay. And how that had to affect him. I don't care if it was just a scene in the movie.
Yeah.
And the pressure, because you know how we are. You get around your boys after they see the movie and they're like, hey man, I saw your wife in that movie.
Right.
And it wasn't a positive, there were going to be at least some negative comments.
Hey, I don't remember the subject matter, but I know I remember the subject.
Exactly.
See.
But and you have to look at Will Smith following that that information being released to the public. He had to hear some of the same things. And the thing is, he might not have only heard it from his friends or in his circle or just socially. He heard it on a national level because everybody's talking about it on social media. They're talking about it on television, and that's a lot to have to deal with.
Yes.
And I think when the Chris Rock incident, that was just a culmination of all that pressure he's been carrying, that buildup, and that was his outlet.
Yeah. And in the moment too, he's like, how do I handle this? Because everybody's watching right now. Do I man up? He got confused about what manning up was at the moment too.
Exactly.
So, and that was unfortunate. I think he thought about it later on, but he's a cognizant, intelligent guy. I'm sure it's going to come out, and I haven't seen his apology yet, but there's going to be a lot of commentary on this because let's face it, Hollywood is making a lot of money off of this right now.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Everybody is.
It's everywhere. Exactly. It's all over the world. They're getting a lot of viewership now, boy.
They said Chris Rock's comedy show tickets have skyrocketed.
Yep, say they doubled the stuff, whatever. They got this, everybody's buying tickets for just Chris Rock because he's gonna have something to say about it too. So. Oh yeah. I bet Netflix called them and say, "Hey, we want to give you a special right now. Netflix and HBO right now. We'll give it to you this week. Some Dave Chappelle money."
Exactly. All right. Well, I think we've beaten that subject to death.
Yeah.
So slapped it to death.
We slapped it to death.
See, then we got to hear this now. So
Johnny Murphy.
Yeah. What did he say? What did the 5 fingers say to the face?
Ooh.
I sure hope. I sure hope when Will Smith go places, I hope he don't hear somebody yell out "darkness." I hope that don't happen.
Right. One of the rappers said too. This is slapping season now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Oh, I guarantee you, it's going to be at least one person that comes up to Will Smith and say, "Please slap me, so I can say I was slapped by Will Smith."
Right. It's coming.
Yeah. It was just
You saw, and you guys saw. Did you guys see the meme that see the meme they made for Jussie Smollett? Did you see that one?
No.
Yeah, they put his picture up, and up on top of it says, "Will Smith slapped me too."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's just gonna it's gonna get worse. It'll
Yeah.
die down originally. I mean, at some point, but it's just
yeah. This is gonna grow all kind of legs. It's gonna be all over the place this now. There'll be memes and you know it's coming. So
well,
there'll
hopefully everybody can learn from this. And like you said, I think Greg, you alluded to it. You know, they're probably gonna have some different type of security measures on some of these shows, you know, so people can't just run up on stage, you know, and I go back to Kanye when he ran up on Taylor Swift. And now Will running up on Chris. So I'm sure all these award shows are going to take some different actions, so to speak.
Yeah,
exactly. They'll probably call it the Will Smith rule.
they'll be
So don't be surprised if next year's Academy Award you see a bunch of big brothers lined up across the front of the stage.
Or sitting close enough to get to it. That's
Exactly.
Like club bouncers.
You know, be on alert.
All right. Well, on a more serious note, as I said earlier, I was interviewed this week by, I guess, the safety consultant expert, in-house expert, stationed in Houston, that was covering the story of how a woman got into the wrong ride share. This was an Uber in this incident. Got into the wrong Uber, and she was raped by the driver, who wasn't really an Uber driver to begin with.
Right.
And when they finally caught up with this guy, he had raped eight or nine women. I sent you guys the link to the interview, and I know at least two of you watched it. In each instance where he raped these women who thought he was their Uber driver, the women never verified that he was their actual driver. And when I was on conducting the interview, I brought up the fact that, you know, Uber and Lyft both have apps that give you the driver information. Now, needless to say, I've done a lot of research as far as safety measures by these companies, rideshare companies. They say it's a priority, but I've seen otherwise, in my opinion. And, you know, they've implemented some measures, but they haven't gone far enough, in my opinion. There were things that can be done, particularly when it comes to protecting women, because over 90% of the sexual assault victims in rideshare are women. And we all have daughters, mothers, wives, sisters, aunt, you know, women that we're concerned about in our lives. And I can say for a fact, I know both of my daughters use rideshare, and I'm constantly talking to them about how dangerous it can be, because the background checks are minimal. And I mean, it was nothing for a rideshare driver to loan their credentials, to say, so to speak, to another person, so that person could drive under their name. And and I mean, that went on for a while. They've cracked down on it somewhat. But as I said, you know, when I was, and Roger, when I was doing this interview, when Isaiah Carey, the news anchor, when he gave me the link, and I was reading the story while we were talking about it, it had another story where the same thing had happened in Chicago. And like I said, this is an ongoing problem. And they're not talking about it enough, because prior to the pandemic, I mean, it was big news. There were law firms that were actively soliciting women who had been raped during a rideshare.
Hey, let's do some numbers. I got some facts on this. This is crazy. They started taking these information of these accounts in 2017. In 2018, check this out. There was 235 reports of rape. This is with Uber alone. I throw all the ride shares together. 280 reports of attempted rape, 1,560 reports of groping, 376 reports of unwanted kissing to the breast or buttocks or mouth. That is crazy. And our Uber received 5,981 reports of sexual abuse between 2017 and 2018, roughly less than a year. Almost 6,000 reports. That's almost, along with the rapes alone, that's what, 4 of them a week?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. And that was never, you don't hear about this.
No, you don't.
I didn't know about it until you, Greg.
Yeah. And see, the thing is, they say a little less than 50% of all crimes are reported. And it's even lower with sexual assault.
Yeah.
So if you're seeing 6,000, you could easily say there are probably 12 to 15,000 going on.
Easily.
And the women are just too scared, ashamed, or embarrassed to report it. And the thing is, nothing, as you said, Ross, well, I'll put it like this. Nothing, it's not being discussed frequently enough, and not enough is being done. And when I was talking on the interview, I told him that, we came up at TLAC and we talked about my safety business before. We created this check call digital download and we call it a call simulator. And I'll put the link when I put up the podcast so you guys can, everybody can check it out. But it simulates a conversation with the user in a strong, deep male voice that keeps the driver off guard, that makes the driver believe, when the driver, this person is calling to check on you and they say, hey, I'm expecting you. And I was just calling to see, are you en route? Give me the driver's name, share your driver info. As that extra safety measure that fills that gap. Now, and I want to be clear on this. This is not to replace 911 at all. This fills the gap between being comfortable in a ride share and the need to call 911. It's that gap where a rider, particularly a female rider, might not feel too comfortable, or she has her suspicions about the driver. And this digital download, as I said, fills that gap because it will at least give a female rider some type of tool to utilize that could possibly keep that ride share driver that is criminally minded off guard and off balance.
That's good.
Yeah, I think
that's good.
Two points I want to cover. Now, we always talk about, females, especially today, need to be paying attention. Stop walking with your head down, looking at your phone. That's a discussion all by itself.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, you're out having a good time. You go party. Too many females are inebriated, drunk, not in their full capacities. Okay. Then they order these Ubers. And if a person is watching them, I'm your Uber driver. So, these females got to take responsibility themselves, watch your surroundings, make sure you're not so drunk, you don't know what's going on. You can't verify information. You get your driver's information, you get the license plate, you get all that information. But some of these females are not paying attention. And one thing I've always taught my daughter, pay attention to your surroundings. If you have a little bit to drink, nothing wrong with a little bit, but make sure that you're not in a state where you don't know where you are, or you wake up the next day and you don't know how you got there. Okay. So there needs to be, some education from that standpoint. Also, since females, a lot of them do have a legitimate fear, if you're on a business trip and you want to order an Uber, you shouldn't have to be worried about, is this guy going to rape me? Why can't Uber come up with something like, well, let me request a female driver versus a male driver?
Bingo.
Okay. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. I see, Rod, you got your hand up. You want to say something?
Yeah, it ties into what Ken was disclosing in reference to women being, aware in reference to their surroundings. Going all the way back, I had a conversation with a colleague, or actually at work, and I talked to the gentleman from the campus police, And one of the things that they started to look at is I think it's something that's in the works. I don't know how detailed it is, but a significant number of these dating apps now, especially Tinder, are starting to crack down on and create these background checks, because a lot of them go on these, a number of them are very lonely and obviously want companionship. So they go on these dating apps, and so much of the people are not being honest and real, and the males. And so apparently these young ladies are scheduling to meet up with these people somewhere. And I heard a couple of recent stories, two that were here in Chicago. And it's all about, as well as about the information that you put online too, because you have to. I even explained to them about being very much aware of the things that you post, even the pictures and the images that you portray, because all of those things can be utilized and accessed. And that's why a significant number of them, when I see their Facebook posts, mostly women, their Facebook accounts keep getting hacked. And I said that is because you all are going the extra mile of it, putting out your attention. And so when you go in there and you perhaps get a DM, or you happen to get some type of like special request, you click on it, all of a sudden now you're hacked. And I said, if you would cut back on the amount of what you put out there as far as showing all your goods to the world, you could obviously, see that there's somewhere along the lines, there's a lot of serpents and evil, manipulative, devils out there that are trying to extract your information. So I know that that's one of the things that I know these dating apps are starting to do, is create a background check to check the status, finding out people who they say they really are, so that they can have the opportunity to reduce the amount of those who, when they get the date, and all of a sudden the girls catch an Uber, or the guy comes, picks them up, and they take them to a location. Next thing you know, that's not the person, and they take advantage of it. And a lot of them, like you said, it is, a lot of them, like Ross, you said, there are a number of them that are reporting it simply because of, like you said, embarrassment, shame, and then of course, which oftentimes they may feel as though that's the only attention they'll get. So they kind of go with it. And then next thing you know, when they try to have a normal relationship and they try to get into something else without being transparent and sharing with them what happened to them, the trauma that they face, next thing you know, that guy's trying to figure out where this all come from. And it's unaddressed pain that has never been resolved. And so, we have to get to a place where, like you said, not only with Uber, but even going all the way back to how people are meeting online. Mm-hmm. Start cracking down and creating these background checks, because if you start from the root and the origin, that can minimize, let alone eliminate, the number of issues that people run into.
And that's true. And let me interject this. It all comes down to situational awareness. Okay. And you don't have a high enough level of situational awareness by some of these people, some of these writers, to pay attention to the warning signs, because the warning signs are there.
Oh, yes, they are.
And you saw the things that I discussed in the interview. And when you, first of all, and let me put the disclaimer in there, this is not a condemnation of rideshare drivers. By and large, the overwhelming majority of them do a good job. It's that small percentage, that criminal element that is, I'm not going to say snuck in, but is gotten in, that take advantage of and victimize these women riders. And we also have to be aware of the fact that these drivers, legitimate drivers, get victimized as well, particularly female rideshare drivers. But one of the things that I brought up during the interview was that, we've all known that for years we've had, you're supposed to have a designated driver. Well, when it comes to rideshare, you have to remember, you ride at your own risk. And it is, I said that we actually need now a designated rider. It's not good enough to see a friend that is so intoxicated that they can't drive home and you call them a rideshare and you just throw them in the rideshare and send them on their way. That's not good enough.
Right.
There should be a level of concern amongst your friends, your girls, your boys, whoever you're out with, that I want to make sure this person gets home safely. So there should be at least one person traveling with, because the likelihood of these incidents happening decreases tremendously when it's more than one passenger. But
right.
remember, we're not talking about, in this instance, we're not talking about being victimized by a rideshare driver. We're talking about being victimized by a person impersonating a rideshare driver.
Yes.
And that's where situational awareness comes in. You have to, you got the app, the information right there in your hand. It's as simple as looking down. And we need to do a better job of educating our women. And in some cases, because these boys, younger boys, can get victimized as well. Just our loved ones in general, about if you're going to utilize rideshare, pay attention to the sign. You do a check-in from the time you get in that vehicle to the time you get out, and give updates throughout. But as I said, if the person is so, is so inebriated that they can't verify that this is my rideshare, and that's exactly, there's a law, it's called Stephanie's Law. They enacted in New Jersey just for that reason, because a young lady named Stephanie was going to school in South Carolina, and she came out of a nightclub drunk and got into a vehicle she believed was her rideshare. She never verified the driver, and he took her out in the woods and raped her and killed her. And so back in her home state of New Jersey, they enacted a law to protect riders, particularly female riders, from these predators, and that's what they are. These predators that sit around, and you know what they do? They hang around these nightclub areas or these club areas that when people are coming out, they look for a target. And they know, they see them looking at their phone, and what is the first thing some of these women do? Are you my driver? Oh yeah, I'm your driver. Come on, get in the back.
That's my point. Yeah, exactly.
So
you gotta pay attention.
You got to pay attention. And, it's a thing, like I said, I've seen, and doing my research, I've seen these guys do everything from engage the child safety lock in the back seat so that once the female gets in, they can't get out unless somebody lets them out. I've seen them put cell phone signal jammers in their vehicles. These things are readily available online, so that the female's cell phone, you can't use it. You can't get a signal because the signal jammer is going off in the car. I've seen them use all kind of measures to keep these young ladies from being able to defend themselves. That's with or without alcohol. So as I said, you have to do a better job. We have to do a better job, particularly Black women. We have to do a better job of protecting them, educating them, and making them more aware. I told you guys earlier about, I did a seminar on rideshare awareness, and the sister told, she felt like the seminar should have been free. And as I said, your hair weave wasn't free.
Mm-hmm. Nothing's free.
Yeah. We have to, yeah, exactly. Invest. And we have to value, our personal safety more than we're doing it now, because too much is happening.
Yeah, people want to spend money on stuff to make themselves look good.
Right.
Or, we'll spend $30 for alcohol. We'll spend blah, blah, blah on hair products. But again, when it comes to personal safety, you can't really put a price tag on that.
No, you can't.
So
no, you can't. And it's not just in rideshare. We're going to talk about other things later on, but like rideshare is one of my, it's really one of my pet peeves, because, when you have kids out there and they utilize it on a frequent basis, they become too comfortable with it. And that's where we are in this society. We become too comfortable with rideshare. I've probably ridden in over 200-300 rideshare, had 200-300 rideshares. And I have actually had recorded conversations with several of drivers, both male, female, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, recorded with their permission. Let me throw that in there, where they discuss the type of things they see. And all of them pretty much said that they get drunk females in their car all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And some of them talked about how they're there to pick up one person and some drunk female would just get in their car and pass out in the back seat, and she was not their ride.
Wow. Wow.
So this goes on a lot more than we know.
On cases, I said, what is that, 3? I just did the math. That's actually three. That's 3 people an hour. That's how pervasive this problem is.
Exactly.
Gee, that's crazy.
It all it takes really, as I say, is situational awareness and common sense, because there are you just have to pay attention to the signs. Watch what your driver is doing. Check the child seat lock, the child lock before you get in the vehicle. When you open that door, look, see if it's engaged. Make sure you check in and you share your information. And I mean, if you can stay on the phone with somebody, that's fine. But man, that's why we came up with Check Call, because there are a lot of women that don't have anybody that they can call,
right,
or anybody they can talk to. Especially we're talking about nightclubs and women hanging out and that might be going shopping. But man, look at all the women that travel for business.
Yeah.
And they're in the city alone. They get off the airport and, and then, this is the other thing. Here's another tip. Don't share your personal information with the driver. If you're going to share your personal information with the driver, don't tell them the truth. If you're single, tell them you're married. And if they say, well, you're here on business, you say, yeah, but my husband's waiting for me at the hotel.
Exactly.
You see, it's all kind of things you can do. And these are the things I teach around. So you just have to use common sense, man. Like I said, I do some training. I've done a lot of training in healthcare with home visit nurses. And one nurse told me in particular incident, she had a patient and the guy was he tracked her down through her social media account. And he started calling her and asking her out, which was against, company policy, but she couldn't control that. He found her and he kept asking her. So she, on the next visit, she says, I'm flattered, but, I really don't think it's appropriate to go out with you. And I said, is that where you let it stand? She said, yeah. I said, I bet he's still asking you to go out. And she said, yes, he is.
Mm-hmm.
I said, why didn't you tell him that you were married? She says, well, because I'm not married. I said, he doesn't know that. I said, all you had to do was say, I'm flattered, but my husband would not appreciate that. But, I'm married, I'm happily married, and I don't want to go out with you. And that ends that conversation right there. If he's going to escalate it, anything past that, now it's time for you to think about going to visit this guy as a patient in the first, at all, and getting the police involved. But the thing is, we have this tendency to be so honest and want to share when someone's being nice to us in a conversation. We don't realize that they can be setting us up.
Right.
And that's what a lot of these women don't realize when they're sharing the information with the driver. Your personal information is none of the driver's business. And so if you're going to give them information, you're going to share information with them, you want to give him information that's going to divert his attention away from the truth so that he can't follow you, can't track you, and it drops you off at the hotel. I remember I went home to Detroit and to visit one time in the hotel. I was staying out by the airport. A flight attendant took an Uber to the hotel. Well, she was out, I guess, on a layover. And the driver waited till she went up into her room. And then I don't know how. Oh, I know what he did because they showed on the video. He jumped over the counter to find out what room she was, because it was late at night and no one was there working the desk. And he took advantage of that. And then he went up in the woman's room and raped her. We have to do a better job of educating and raising awareness around these things, because rideshare is not going away. It's not going away.
It's escalating, getting bigger.
It's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. Yeah. It might not always be Uber or Lyft. You got to remember that, because they have some competitors out there too.
Yeah, there's other pop-ups now.
Right. But
that's the future of it too. There'll be a future where we won't even be buying vehicles and stuff. We'll be using that all the time too.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of these young people feel. Why should I buy a car?
Right.
It's cheaper for me to just take an Uber to the grocery store and come back than buy gas and pay a car note and insurance.
We're headed to that, and there's got to be some things in place. Yeah, we've had some other technology that got in front of the safety behind it. I hope we learn from that. And this rideshare thing is that's blowing my mind. I mean, I kind of pride myself on being a little knowledgeable about bits of everything. I was totally ignorant about this until you wired me up. I'm like, wow, this problem is this big. So as soon as I get finished with this, I got a granddaughter at UNLV. I'll be sending her the TLAC link and stuff, whatever. You know, all the girls, all the daughters and stuff, whatever.
Let me tell you this. Okay. Prior to the pandemic, I worked with some folk with the city of Houston from the Convention Bureau and the hotels, and we were building a safety zone for rideshare users, for people who are coming out of town for conventions and everything else, where you would have all the information. You had designated areas for the rideshare drivers to pick you up, but that wasn't the key thing, the key component of it. The key component of it was that all the drivers that wanted to come into this convention zone, they had to have a background check, not performed by Uber or Lyft, but by the city of Houston. They had to have a thorough background check. Now, I'm not saying that was your choice. If you were an Uber driver or a Lyft driver and you wanted to come in and take advantage of all these people in town in this convention center, you had to voluntarily get this background check. If you don't want to be bothered, so be it. You don't have to get it. But if you're coming into this zone where the bulk of the people are coming in town for sporting events, concerts, hanging out in these entertainment centers, you had to have that background check done by the city of Houston. We were putting all these things in place. Another component we had about it is that we involve the entertainment district. It's not enough for a bartender to see that someone is drunk and stick them in a ride share or a cab. Right. Your responsibility goes far beyond that. You know, if you overserve them and you stick them in a cab or a ride share and something happens to them, you're just as responsible if something happens. Yeah. So, you know, we had set all this up, man. I had designed this and put it all in place, but then the pandemic came. Yeah. And that shut everything down. So I will be back in contact. And I say Houston, but Houston was just going to be the pilot program. This is something that because I was talking to a young lady out of, and she worked for the NFL. And she said the NFL would love to get involved with something like this.
You know what? Yes. Oh, that makes sense.
Yes, most for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, this is a team effort. Everybody needs to be involved in this, get as many people involved as possible. You just want to make these guys that are criminal, predatory rideshare drivers and the ones who are just predators and criminals impersonating rideshare drivers, you want to make them as uncomfortable with this as possible.
And that was my point. You know, we know rideshare is not going anywhere. And trafficking, human trafficking is just getting worse.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I've talked about this on some previous shows that we've had. You know, females are at risk, and we as men have to do a better job of looking out for females, because these young ladies are, you know, like you said, getting in these ride shares. They're walking down the street with their heads down. They're not focusing on anything but what's on their phone. My question is, how do we get them to do better? Now, we can't save everybody. Everybody's not going to listen because people have the thought of, well, it can't happen to me.
Exactly. And Kit, that's an excellent point. It's like when you see something go bad, have a terrible crime in these little small country towns or in the suburbs, and you hear these people say, well, we never thought it would happen here. And that's exactly why it did happen there, because you never thought it would happen there. And it's the same thing with what you just said, Kent, but it won't happen to me. Well, it's happening to somebody, and why not you? Yeah. What are you doing to protect yourself?
And it's getting worse. It's getting worse. So every time I leave the house, I'm looking out for every female I see, especially those who walk alone, who's got their heads down. And I don't want to approach them. I don't want to say anything, you know, but sometimes, you know, that protective element in my spirit, you know, you're like, young lady, hold your head up, pay attention to what you're doing. And just like when I told you guys the last time, female got in my car, she got in the wrong car.
That's right.
Yep. So it's just the problem's getting worse. People are just not listening and focusing, you know, and not paying attention to their surroundings. So, Greg, what the programs you developed, it needs to go mainstream. It needs to go bigger than a podcast. It needs to go bigger than the local news station that you've been on, because it's too important, and it's not enough is being done. Okay,
Right.
it's just not enough.
Well,
So-
and that's the hope and dream, because generally I'm dealing with the private sector, so everything I'm doing for them is internal. But when you see these things outside of that have so many applications beyond just one or two private sector corporations, you hope you're right, Kent. We have to get the word out so it can grow and people start taking this stuff seriously. We look at these things, these events happen all the time, and all we ever say is, "Oh, what a shame. Oh, what a shame." It's a shame we didn't do anything about it before it happened.
Right.
Exactly. We have to be proactive.
Proactive.
And this might be reaching, but hey, you got dreams, you got a vision. I share that vision like we all do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We see all these talk shows, all this crap that comes on TV.
Mm-hmm.
If I see one more talk show, if I see one more reality show, it makes me sick. We need an actual television program with this information.
Mm-hmm.
It's too important.
It is.
Isn't it amazing? People will pay more attention to reality TV than they will to reality.
Oh, without a doubt. And watch it on their phone.
So I know LinkedIn is going to get it first. So I already know what I'm going to write on there and stuff. I got access to a lot of people. I've seen you on there too with TLAC. We can dream about and hope what's going to happen. We can make it happen.
Exactly.
If we say we can
And
make
that's
it.
my point.
We can
make this.
Okay, Raj.
So there's two things. One is kind of interject some humor. The second thing is to share with you a contact that I have here in Chicago, Greg, if you want to maybe connect with him.
Okay.
Two things, you look at it from back in the day, they ever said if Armageddon comes, mostly roaches will be alive.
The only thing to survive.
The only thing to survive. But in today's world, with society, with all this reality TV, I said if Armageddon came, the only thing that would survive?
The Real Housewives or whatever.
The Kardashians. On another segment, I'm going to share something with you that I found out about a lot of these IG accounts that these young ladies have when they ask for booking and inquiries. I found out a detailed story that blew my mind when I found out what the really natural aspect of why a lot of these young ladies do what they do to themselves physically to enhance. I'll share it on another segment. I got so much truth to it that I found out about that. That'll
be a good one.
Oh yeah, I got some good stuff to give you guys on that one. But on another note, a gentleman here by the name of Derek Thetford, he is the media. He's a media correspondent and consultant with Midway Broadcasting Corporation. I'm gonna reach out to him and share with him what you have going on, Greg.
Yeah, I appreciate
look
that.
To see. Oh yeah, look to see. Because he even sent me a proposal about what we're trying to do to get a campaign going, but because we don't have an executive director for our marketing and PR yet, my director, she doesn't want to go for. She loves the idea, but because of the marketing dollars and what it may cost, we don't have it in place right now. But what I like to do is get you and him introduced because I want to see if he has counterparts in your area in all of our cities, because that way. Yeah. He could, I obviously, you could, if it's not, then you could utilize the Chicago market as your launching pad.
Right.
And then when enough people hear about you, the next thing you know, he said, hey, I know somebody down in Atlanta. I knew somebody in Dallas. I know somebody in Detroit. I know somebody over in California. Yeah. So I'll reach out to him. And I would say, Greg, if you want to maybe email me, just because I know he might want to tune in, or I might just ask him to be on next week, or next time you do a call, I'll see if he can join.
Okay.
That way he can see how the dialogue goes. But he's a great brother. I've had a lot of great conversations, virtual calls with him, and he's very passionate about what's happening in our world today, especially with our young adults. The brother's very knowledgeable, but I think based on we can continue to have these podcasts, and I was sitting here listening, and I felt God telling me, have him get in touch with Derek Thetford. I said, "Damn, that's who Greg can probably utilize in the Chicago market."
Amen.
And we'll see what happens there. But I'm gonna give him a call and reach out to him. And if you start with the Chicago market first, it is big enough. And the three radio stations target specifically about all the topics that we go over and what we're covering.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? Yeah, Roger, that's and thank you for that. This is a perfect
You're welcome.
example to show how brothers can work together.
Yeah.
And to help each other out. And not just help each other out, but help our own community. You know, it doesn't always have to be all this contention, all these shootings, and even all this slapping.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, because Greg, you have a incredible purpose that supersedes the basic, you know, not knocking Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton, but we can only march for so long. All right, it's time to put things into action because we can do it all day. Let's put boots to the ground and let's execute some things because nothing is making anything better, and they're the same, if not gotten worse. So, you know, I said, man, let's execute and it's gonna happen with us, black men.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And let me say this, you know, our culture, what our race has been through, and Greg and Ross, you know, we've been through this. We were a little bit ahead of Roger. You know, we've seen a great deal in the 60s. Okay. We saw all the events and the leaders, whether it's Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton, and they had their place. They did their thing. You know, I will never knock them. This is a different day and time, true enough, but certain things work. We still need to march. We still need to implement programs that's going to make a difference. We need to be what Greg is doing. We need to set up podcasts. We need to set up our own reality programs on TV where we're concerned about people. We're concerned about young ladies, you know, people of color. You know, we can't change social media. It's not going to change, but we have to utilize it and make the best of it and make it work for us. So again,
exactly.
You know,
exactly.
This podcast is evident of using technology today. And again, I don't get on Facebook to see a bunch of goofy people and, you know, and all this other stuff. I get on there to network, to see what's going on, and to share Greg's platform and all our platforms.
Right.
You know, and we got to be aware of what we see and what's going on. Like I said, all these reels and these females doing all these videos, and it's pointless, and it's you know, it makes no sense. And this creates a bigger problem with predators and with the human trafficking.
Exactly.
These ladies are putting themselves out there.
Exactly. I mean, and Kent, you hit it right on the head. And I said this previously. The internet and social media, they're both a predator's playground, because I can find you on social media and find all the information I want to find about you on the internet. If I'm smart, I can connect things about you to if I see you and I want to have contact with you without you even knowing. One of the things I got to say this I like about LinkedIn is that when somebody visits your profile, and Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys would know this, you know when that person saw your profile, you know, even though, you know, they'll give you a limit.
All the time.
Not all the time. No, not all the time if you don't have premium. If you pay for premium, you get to see everybody. But at least they had that in place. But your Facebook, your TikTok, your Instagram, you have no idea who's looking at your profile.
Well, let me tell you this. On LinkedIn, I found this out. It's not just premium, but I would say, let's say you get, and it says one person from somewhere. So, and I click on it anyway, and it shows the actual company. So you can actually sift through and see who among that, you can go in and see and look through the company to see who may have took the opportunity to look up your profile.
Right.
And the funny thing is I've gotten a lot of hits from women in reference to investing in like crypto and Bitcoin, currency. You know, some I had to block because their conversation went left. I'm like, you ain't trying to talk about no Forex and no Bitcoin and stuff. And so, you know, and I said, I ain't messing with y'all. Even if I was saying, but I said all that to say is there is where you can find out information as to who may have looked up your profile just by clicking on it, because they'll say one person from looked on your profile. When I click on it, it does give you
detail. It gives you some details, but let's say it lists a company of 40 people from there, and you can kind of sift through, and you can look and see the likelihood of who may have reviewed your account, and you can look for a trend. Look for a trend of people that's accessing your information. And then on Facebook, like Greg, you mentioned, there might be some people that send you a Facebook Messenger or Instagram message. And I basically say, and I'll text the contact, say, hey, did you send me a message about hello, how are you? And they says, no, Roger. I said,
Right.
They said,
They were
man,
hacked.
somebody hacked my account. And I told some of these young ladies, and I said, can I tell y'all something? The reason why y'all accounts keep getting hacked is because these nasty jokers, they go on, they see you make all these swimsuit photos, these hair and makeup pictures, and then what they do is they go into they go into your DMs, or they go into your Facebook message, and they say, hey, I saw you, I wanted to talk to you. And then what happens is you don't think in your mind, you click on it, all of a sudden, that's all I see. I'll look on Facebook, I'm like, shit, her account got hacked. Her account got hacked. I don't barely see any guys' accounts getting hacked.
Yeah.
But I said, ladies, practice proper judgment and stop being daughters of Eve. Obviously, there's a serpent out there that's trying to take advantage of you.
And Roger, it's interesting. You were talking about what you can see on LinkedIn. Now, I posted that interview this morning on LinkedIn, and I'm looking at, I can actually see the companies the people work that looked at it. It talks about what the people do who have looked at it and who viewed it. And it's a number of people from the public safety, their titles are public safety professionals, got salespeople, business strategy, human resource specialists, corporate trainers, recruiters, business owners, and university professors. So that shows you how diverse the appeal of what we were talking about is to the wider public. It is something that is a concern to anybody, especially anybody that has women in their lives that they care about.
Well, just, I always go a step further. All of our people that we care about, men, teenage boys, they're not safe either.
No, they're not.
Today, nobody's safe.
Nobody's safe.
We got to take the actions, take the steps to make a difference.
Yep.
And Greg, thank you for what you're doing. Mm-hmm. We need to expand it. I want to see this thing grow.
Absolutely.
If it saves just one life, it's worth it.
I want to see it grow too, Kent. But to me, what's more important is to see the number of people victimized, particularly the women in our community and the people in our community period, the number of victimization decrease.
Yes. That's the goal, to see those numbers start to go down.
Right.
And we need to educate other young brothers.
Yes, we do.
About, hey, what are you doing to protect your house? What are you doing to protect your nieces and nephews? Since we're talking about females, your nieces, your aunts.
Well, you know how you could get the attention of those males? Put this information on an Xbox or a PlayStation.
Ooh.
Have a break and then Call of Duty and talk about personal safety.
And I'm going to throw this in too. If kids end up missing, they end up on a milk carton.
Right.
Put this stuff on a liquor bottle.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many avenues that you could utilize for this. I'm tired of getting Amber Alerts at 3:00 in the morning.
Thank you. Same here.
And I mean, that type of information, and we talked about this with hate crime, and that's something, gentlemen, we're going to talk about later, because Biden signed that anti-lynching bill and hate crime. The thing is, there are too many avenues that we could be utilizing to get this information out a lot quicker and a lot faster. And as I said before, law enforcement decides whether or not to classify a crime as a hate crime.
Right.
But they also decide whether or not to activate the Amber Alert. And I was listening to a radio show where a guy talked about how his daughter had been missing for days and he could not get the police department to put it out as an Amber Alert because they said it didn't rise to that level.
Wrong shade.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I did some research on the Amber Alert statistics, And the majority of people that show up on an Amber Alert nationwide, I'm not saying in Texas, but
Right.
nationwide, the majority of people that show up on the Amber Alert are Black.
Oh, I stand corrected. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised when I saw that statistic, so that it's getting out there. I don't know how selective it is, because the guy I was just talking about, that incident didn't happen in Texas. That was something that happened up Northeast. I'm constantly getting Amber Alerts 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where's the follow-up on that? It's not just enough to see it on a billboard or somewhere. They should be utilizing social media platforms to get, especially regional. They should be connecting with these social media companies. Say, listen, we want you to put this Amber Alert out in these 3 states. They can do that. Mark Wahlberg, I'm sorry, Zuckerberg.
Yeah. In our area here, I'm not noticing the Amber Alerts this year thus far. And I'm probably wrong about that.
Right.
But normally in my area, in the area that I'm in, they post them on the digital billboards.
Right.
You see it on 94,
Mm-hmm.
on all major highways and stuff, on 94, 75, 96, which I think that's a good job that they do. So when it happens, everybody knows about it. Because everybody's fired one time or another. So I think we do a good job about that around here and stuff. So that should be something that is not modeled in your area. Do you have those? Do you see them on the highway when you're driving? When they have
yeah.
Yeah, we see them all the time.
Yeah,
So,
Amber Alerts and Silver Alerts.
Yep, but it's just something else that needs to be focused on. We have the technology available to us to have better coverage. All right, gentlemen. Well, if you guys don't have anything to add, I want you to have a good week. Another great discussion. Until the next time, gentlemen, have a good week and stay safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Uncle Greg Show podcast. Be sure that you like, share, and subscribe this podcast on all social media platforms. And if you have any comments, feel free to email. The links and details for all social media platforms and email address for the Uncle Greg Show podcast are contained in the details section of each podcast. Thank you for listening and be safe.